Hello everybody, welcome back. Part 2 now of the build of this lovely little kit from Airfix. This is the Airfix 1/72 scale Hawker Hurricane Mk.1. If you haven't seen part 1, go and have a look. And if you are an absolute beginner, really new to the hobby, there'll be some interesting little bits of information for you in the beginning of that video. So last time we got the undercarriage bay all glued in and everything. A few little problems with that, but I sort of went over the top a bit with the problems just so that you could see, you know, what you may be coming up against. And I could have just put it together and not said anything. And then if you had the problems, you'd probably be thinking you're doing something wrong. Generally, if it's a Tamiya kit, a modern Tamiya kit, and something's not going together well, it probably is something you've done wrong. Most other manufacturers, no, there could be a few little issues. So we've done this, we've glued that tank onto that spar, we put the spar into the wing, we put in the box, and now we've done all the silver painting. We put this little clear part in here, F6. That's a little light from below, and if you remember I went around with a magic marker and painted in around there, and we also painted over the lens. And as you can see, I've got some magic marker on the lens. So what we're going to do, if you've got some of this is Tamiya X20A thinners, this is absolutely fine to use. Or even some enamel thinners if you have enamel paint. Don't use anything like this. Don't use the Mr. Colour Rapid thinners or tool cleaners or, you know, cellulose thinners or anything like that. It needs to be fairly soft. So what you can use is isopropyl alcohol. And I've got some in here in this little glass bottle, and it's got IPA, not the beer. It's isopropyl alcohol. You can get like a gallon of it on Amazon for about £5 or £10 even. There's different levels, and believe me, although it says 99.9% alcohol or something, it's not all the same. I've got one downstairs now that says 99.5% or something, and it won't touch stripping paint, and yet another one I've got does. So they're not all the same. So I'm just going to grab a cotton bud, use a Johnson's cotton bud, and just dip that in the IPA. Put the lid back on in case we knock it over. And then I'm just going to grab a bit of cloth and just dry off. We don't want it absolutely soaking wet. And then we'll put my finger on the back to support it and just rub gently over the top. As you can see, the excess ink will be removed, and we will end up with, just get that excess off of there. We'll end up with a lovely looking little light. You can see the silver background on there, and you can see that when you look at it, all around the edge is black. You haven't got that horrible glaring chrome edge to it. So that's why I do the black on the edges. If you follow me regularly, you'll know that's what I do all the time, and a lot of you have commented already about how successful that's worked for you. So there we go. So that's our light done. Right. As I say, you can use X20A, you can even use Mr. Leveling thinners if you've got some. You can use IPA, you can use, just be careful of some things, like I would say, don't use cellulose thinners, that destroys the plastic. Don't use like acetone or nail varnish remover or anything, that can destroy the plastic as well. Some nail varnish removers are very gentle, so just be very, very careful. Perhaps test, if you want to test it on the inside of here first, because if you damage the plastic in there, it doesn't matter because that's inside the wing. So there we go. So we're going to look at gluing these together now. And as Airfix tell you in their suggestions, it's best to remove paint from gluing together surfaces if you can. Okay, it's not 100% necessary, but it is best to if you can. So what I'm going to do is just where that silver paint is, I'm just going to lightly rub over here. Okay, and lightly rub over there. And then over the top of this cross member or the spar, whatever it is, just remove the paint. Now I know that when I put this on here, that spar is sitting on the back edge of that piece inside, which is attached to the top wing. It's part of the top wing. So what I'm going to do is with my knife, I'm just going to remove a small amount of paint from the back edge. That's enough. It's just so that the glue can get to it and then it'll attack from within. Okay, now we haven't got any paint on these edges here. There is a tiny patch actually there. So we just remove the paint from there. Okay, and then on here we can take some off of here as well. We can take some off of there. But we don't need to worry about it too much. So that's gone together like that. That's going to go over there, and that's all going to get clamped together. So there's lovely. There's lovely, see? And we can just quickly check and we can see that everything's going together. We need a little bit of pressure to pinch it up, but nothing's trying to fight us. Now at the back here you can see our trailing edge is a bit thick, but that's going to be for another day. That's going more into the advanced side of things. But I will show you in future how to thin that out and get a lovely, really thin edge, which in 72nd scale is what you need. I'm not going to worry too much on this one. If it was this was an Armour hobby kit or something, then we'd be wanting to really go to town with it. I'm also just going to remove the paint from there just because it's good practice. I normally wouldn't bother, but if I'm trying to show you the way I do it properly, then I need to show you the way they do it properly, not what I normally do and get around things. So there we are. So that's gone together lovely. As you can see, a little bit of pressure to pinch that together, that's absolutely fine. Right. Now, one thing I did forget to talk about in the beginning was when I said about clamps, I've got pegs. I've also got these things here. These are bulldog clamps, and these are really handy for doing things like trailing edges because you can clamp them like that. Okay. The downside to that, what you need to be really careful of is if you've got a wet area of glue in there, if you put that on there and then you leave it for a couple of hours, what happens is the glue softens the plastic and that leaves an indentation in the plastic, so you have to be very careful. Now what some people will show you to do is to use something like this Tamiya white cement, okay, and put that on there first. I don't like doing that if I can help it because it tends to all lose out. So what I like to do is glue afterwards. Now if you've got the Revell contactor, you're going to have to hold this carefully, go around the edge, glue it and then put it together. This is why the brush type glues are so much better, the liquids, because they're so easy to put in afterwards. And also now, you can imagine if I had glue here, I have to put this together like this, and I have one chance. If I get it wrong, I've had it. So, you know, it's best to use a liquid glue if you can. Right, so what I'm going to do here is just temporarily put a peg on these wingtips, just to hold it all together, okay, and then I'm going to concentrate around the middle. Now you can see it's all gone together lovely, it's all together, so we don't have any problems going down the road. So I'm just going to hold this together here, and you can see that when I pinch this here, it's okay. When I pinch that, you can see it's okay, it doesn't open up or anything. If I pinch it over here, look what happens. It's opening it up. So therefore pegs are no good for that area. So we need to prepare ourselves with some masking tape. So I'm going to put some bits of masking tape on the edge of my bench here. So I'm ready and prepared. We just have 4 for now. Okay, so I've got some 10mm masking tape there. Okay. You can use ordinary masking tape, ordinary household masking tape. The trouble is it tends to be not so sticky, it tears a lot easier, and it does tend to leave deposits behind, which this stuff doesn't, the Tamiya masking tape. So what I'm going to do here is concentrate on one side at a time. I'm going to do this side first. So I'm going to hold that together, and I can put the glue on the inside, look, so I don't cause any damage on the outside. I can put the glue on the inside, and then when I squeeze it, you can see how the glue has capillaried along. Capillary is when something rushes down between a gap. It's like if you blow 2 pieces of paper together, they actually pull together. Right, so I'm going to hold that until that glue starts to gel. Okay, you can see at the moment it's still liquid because when I squeeze it, it oozes out. But I'm just going to hold that until it starts to gel. In fact, I don't need to wait for it to gel because I can peg it there, can't I? It's over here I need to wait for it to gel. So what I'm going to do here is use this to my advantage. I'm going to squeeze the wing together. As you can see, when I squeeze it, the gap opens up. So I can squeeze it and I can apply the cement into the gap, and you will see it capillary along. Okay? You can see that it's all starting to come apart. As soon as I let it go, it wants to come apart. But that's okay, we've got a gap there to get the glue into, which is good. Squeeze it here on the end, make it come apart, look. Squeeze it here on the end again, make it all come apart. We're going to have to do some sanding work on that wing tip because it's not lining up very well. That's good because it means we can, I can once again show you how to do a bit of seam filling and stuff. Remember, this is not like some other channels where they just show you how to build a kit out of the box using the kit glue and the kit paints and everything. I'm showing you how to build a little model properly. Just because it's a little model doesn't mean it has to be thrown together in a day. A lot of people like little models because they don't have the room for the bigger models. And in this day and age, certainly a lot of people can't afford the bigger models because they cost an absolute fortune. So on the trailing edge, I'm going to use that to my advantage again. I can squeeze it, the joint opens up. As you can see, the glue is capillarying along. When I let it go, you'll see a shiny line appear on the surface. Okay, plenty of glue in there because we've got a very large area. You've got like a sort of 6mm wide band down there. You want to get that glue together nice and solid. You don't want it to split open. Alright, and you can see here that it doesn't want to stay together, so we're going to have to pinch that there. Alright, again here we can glue it from the inside. There we go. You can see here, especially if I pinch that, you can see what happens. When I pinch it, it pulls it apart. So you've got to be very, very careful. And then what we can do is just run some glue along that edge just to make sure. There we go. Right, so this glue on the front now will have gelled. Now what you don't want to be doing is putting the tape on when the glue is wet, because the glue will then come out and capillary under the tape and it will ruin your surface. So what we're going to do here is put the tape on, pull it round, stretch it, put the tape on, pull it round, stretch it, and that's got that leading edge all held together along with that peg. The trailing edge, the glue is now gelled off, so what we can do is do that, rub my fingers, check there's no glue on there. I'm just squeezing it together and moving out as I do. So I'm sort of stroking it and stroking it out. And there we are, and that's our trailing edge done. Now if you want to, you can put some of these bulldog clamps on here, but I wouldn't leave them on there for any more than about 10 minutes, because you may find you'll start to leave marks in the plastic. So that's that done. Okay, and all we've got to do now is repeat it on the other side. Now here, put that peg like that. Here, see, these are just going to keep falling off. I need to get some new ones actually, these are knackered. Here we have, it's a lot tighter going together. So what we're going to do here is get some cement into this joint here, and it will capillary around. Put it on the inside, and you can see there, if I put some more on it'll show you even better. You can see here out along, sort of up to where my finger is now, you can see there's glue coming out of the joint. You can see how it's capillaried around. Now just to make sure, if you want to be dead certain, there you go, you can see that's moved along there now. Knock that clamp off again. So I'm squeezing the wing together, opening it up, let the glue go in, let it capillary around, squeeze it, let it go around, squeeze it, let it go around. And then I'm going to put a peg on there, and hopefully that'll be enough to hold that together. We get a stronger peg. That was one of my older pegs which is weaker. There we go. Okay, so we can now do the same here as we've done. As I said guys, I'm not going to do anything off camera with this build. I'm going to do it all on camera, so it may be a sort of 3 or 4 part series, I don't know, but everything except painting will be done on camera, so you don't miss a thing. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. There's no need to complain. There's no need to put in the comments that you're too slow. or you talk too much, or this, that, the other, or any negative comments I won't have, I'll just delete them. This is for beginners, and a lot of people like to see all the detail. If you don't want to see the detail, you got a forward arrow button on your computer, press that, it goes forward 5 seconds every time you press it. There we go. And then we'll just run a line of glue around there. Just to make sure. Put that clamp back on there. And Jess is going to bark. It's amazing how good their hearing is. I can't hear a thing, but she's probably heard something. There we go. And now that glue there is gelled off, we could come along with our tape. Put the tape on the top, pull it around. There we go, same here, put the tape on the top, pull it around. And then this is the toughest part for beginners, is having patience. You've now got to leave this, oh, there's one bit I forgot to do. Yeah, I forgot to glue that front of that wheel bay in. I'm just going to put some cement in there. I'm not going to clamp it because it'll ooze out on the inside and make a mess. I'm just going to put some cement in there and drop down the bottom. There we go. And we're also going to put some across these bloody clamps. We're also going to put some across the back of here. There we are. So that is our wing all glued together, all nicely, and we've got some seam work to do all around the leading edge, all around the trailing edge, but our wing is basically done. Seams. So as part of a beginner's series, seam filling is going to be a biggie. So seam filling is, the first thing I do is remove all this tape. Seam filling is one of the most important skills you need to hone yourself on to get a nice model. Okay, you could be the best modeler in the world, the best dry brusher, the best painter, the best weatherer, the best everything. At the end of the day, if your model's covered in seams, and that is not just seams like joined seams like this, you've also got mould seams as well, which I'll talk more about in a second. In fact, I'll put this here to remind me. If you've got seams everywhere, your model will not look good. Okay, it's like, for example, here you can see on the leading edge of this wing, to the right hand side of those guns, you can see there's a big line, and okay, you might think that's fine. You paint your model, after you look at it, it's like bang, it just looks awful. So we need to deal with all that. So what we've got this nice and solidly glued together. You can also see on here we have a little mismatch on the wingtip, which is great. As this is a beginner series, it will show you how to get rid of it. And you can see we've got where the lower wing is slightly bigger than the upper wing. You can see it's okay at the back, but on the front edge it's sticking out. On this side it's the same. It's almost like this upper wing section has shrunken slightly when it was taken out of the mould. But other than that, it's all good. The dihedral's good, everything's looking great. So happy with that. So we've got all the tape off. And the first thing I'm going to do is put something in to fill these gaps. Now, as I mentioned in part, the other thing I want to talk about is seams. Seams like this, these are actually seams from where you've joined your model together. Okay. You also have seams on parts where the mould halves come together, the part is ejected out, and out comes the sprue. And as a result, you get a line. And if I can catch it in the light, you'll be able to see it. There is a seam along there. Okay. So if this was like an undercarriage leg that's been moulded in here, you will have a seam all the way around it. And when you start doing your painting and stuff, it looks awful. So we need to get rid of those as well. So we'll also look at getting rid of seams on round parts. I won't forget to do that because I always talk about that. So I'm going to use super glue for this. So I'm going to get my black super glue, and I think really what I'm going to do is get rid of this light grey mat for a second, because I don't mind getting glue on that one, but I don't want to ruin that light grey one. So some of you may be saying, oh great, the green one's much better. Well, no, I'm staying with the grey. And then when I look at the videos to edit them, I can see which is which straight away. Right, so all I'm going to do, I've got a hair on in there, which is a right pain. Get rid of that. Make sure we haven't got any glue on our fingers. What I'm going to do is with a cocktail, oh, the hair is still there. Go away. Yeah, that's right, even the dog's telling you to go away. Right, so we've got our cocktail stick, and we're just going to dab the glue, the super glue. This is, I didn't show you, did I? This is the VMS Flexi 5K Black Thin, available from Premium Hobbies, and I absolutely swear by the stuff. It's a fantastic filler. You've already seen me use it in part 1 on a couple of ejection pin marks, and now we're using it in part 2 for filling our wing seams, and we'll be using it maybe later on, maybe in part 3, we'll be using it for our fuselage seams, and we'll use it all around, and we'll use it everywhere. I'll also go into using Mr. Surfacer. Mr. Surfacer is a paint, basically a filler in a bottle, made by Mr. Hobby, and it's fantastic stuff. And if you wonder why I'm not using it here, I'll just show you what Mr. Surfacer is. This is, come here, this is Mr. Surfacer 500. This is the thickest of them. So the Mr. Surfacer, it's like a, take the lid off, you can see it's like a very thick primer in there, and it's great. You can sort of paint it on with a brush, paint it into little thin areas, let it dry, sand it back, or use another method which I'll show you. The downside to it is, over time, when I say over time, I mean you put it on today, it dries this afternoon, you sand it back, and then tomorrow you come back to your model and you've got a seam. Sprue goo is another one. You'll see people use sprue goo. I've done videos about how to make sprue goo and my opinions on what you should use. Sprue goo is great, but the trouble is it's made with plastic card and extra thin, which is a very hot solvent. So basically that solvent needs to evaporate, and it always leaves you a line behind as the solvent comes away. So I tend not to use sprue goo if I can help it. I've only recently started using this. I always used to use Mr. Surfacer for everything, as people would always tell you, and I find that this stuff is absolutely amazing. You will know that super glue is normally very hard when it dries, so it's difficult to sand. It's very brittle. You can add talcum powder or baking soda or whatever to CA glue, super glue, to make it more usable. But why bother when you can buy this stuff in the bottle, pour it out, and this has the advantages of it doesn't dry rock hard. It doesn't dry instantly, so as a glue you've got time, you've got another hair there. Be careful of these little bits of fluff because they will carry the glue and make a mess everywhere. But basically the VMS stuff is amazing. It's easy to sand. It doesn't dry instantly, so when you're using it as a glue you can put the part in position, then move it around. They say it takes 24 hours to fully cure, but I've always found that after sort of around about an hour I can start to sand it. But I'm guessing it's like, you know, touch dry in 30 minutes, full dry 24 hours. I guess it's that kind of thing. So we just dab this on, and as I showed you with those ejector pin marks, it dries shiny, which works to your advantage, because then when you sand it, if you see any shiny areas, you know you haven't sanded it. And of course the other thing with this that's so good is because it's black, you can see where it's gone. Like I can see I've got it heavier here than I have here. So you just put a little bit more in there. Okay, so there we are, and we can see we've gone all the way around. So we'll just let that dry, and that won't take very long at all. I'll just put that down, let that dry, and then we can look at sanding it, and we'll use our Tesco's nail file, get it all smoothed out, and probably go over it with a sponge as well. But I'm just going to have another quick look actually, because I can see an area. Let's see if I can pick this up. Come here. I can see an area where I've just missed the seam there. There we go. So no doubt there'll be other areas, so when we come back we'll see. If you really want to see how to go to town with your, I can still see that area there. If you really want to see how to go to town with using this stuff for doing seams and everything, go back and look at my Airfix 148 Sea King build, part 1, and you'll see on there how I glued the panels into the side of the fuselage, left them slightly proud, sanded them smooth and everything, and used this with tape and all sorts, and you get some good hints and tips from that, I expect. So yes, so here we go. Right, so I'll see you back in a minute. Alright, so while our wing is over here drying away, I'm going to look at moving on and getting these parts off the sprue ready for assembly, because once the wing is dry and sanded and everything, we can get this on and get some paint down. And I know these are going to need some cleanup. As I was just talking about seam lines, I'm going to show you how to get rid of them. So we need sprue C, which is, yeah, I should have put those big tags on like I told you to do, didn't I? It's the bottom one, would be, wouldn't it? It's the bottom one. So we're going to get these parts off. So we need C11, which is here. That's our little footrest, floor, whatever you want to call it. So that's there. We need C6, which is our rudder pedals, so they're here. Be careful how we cut these off. Okay, there we go. So that's off there. And then finally C8, which is our control column. We're going to cut that off there. And then cut the bottom off. Make sure you don't remove the pin. Something that's quite easy to do sometimes. You look on the bottom of there, you can see the sprue nib goes onto the pin. If you cut it off too close, you end up with no pin to fit it. So what we'll do is just cut that off there so we've got the pin. And I'm going to remove most of the plastic from the side of there. And I'm going to remove most of the plastic from the side of there. Most of that. There we go. You can see what I'm doing. Just leaving a bit of a nib on there. Now here it's very difficult to see what's sprue nib and what's parts, so be very careful if you need to use a magnifier. But basically don't go cutting too much off. It's easy to do, I've done it loads of times. And you end up cutting off the pin that you think is a sprue nib, but it's not. So I can now get my knife, hold this carefully and just gently remove some of that excess from there. And I'll get this cut down piece of sanding stick. Remember we cut this down in part 1. What we did, we took a normal Tesco nail file and then we cut it, cut the ends off, as you can see there. And now we've got narrower sanding sticks for getting into tight places. All for a price of a sanding stick costs about £1. And there we go. I haven't got any here with me now, but the ones you need to avoid, you know, you get the short little nail files about this long and they're like brown or green in colour. They're very, very coarse. You need something like this which is fairly fine. Okay, these are actually called, I'm not even sure they'll stock these anymore because they're quite old, but these are called 2 professional nail files, designed to give a smooth finish to the natural or artificial nails. So we've got a coarse and a smooth side, but believe me, the coarse side is probably like, the smooth side is like 400 and that's like probably 320, maybe 280, 240 or something like that. But the smooth side is perfect for working with this. Okay, so we can just clean it like that. Now all around here, you'll need a bloody microscope to see it, but all around here there will be a seam. So what I'm going to do is just very lightly with my knife, just go around and scrape where the seam goes. There are tools you can buy. They'll tell you the special tools you can buy for for removing seams, you can use a knife. Okay, so that's that done. Alright, and then we've got the control column. Again, we're going to pick this up, we're going to get our knife, I'm going to cut along the length where it's the strongest, and just slowly just gnaw away, just nibble away at that plastic there. Again, we're going to use the smooth side. It's spookily quiet today. It's Sunday. It's the Sunday before the bank holiday. And normally there are children outside playing and stuff. And there's not, as you can hear, there's no noise in the background. Maybe they've all gone away for hopefully for 2 weeks. It'd be nice. Okay, so that's one cleaned up, seam done. And then this one here, it's just on the sides. We've got the flat bit there. Just remove that sprue nib from the side there, remove the sprue nib from the side there, and there we go. Still got some left on there, so we'll just keep sanding. Again, if you want to see what you're doing, just get a pencil. If you're wondering why I don't use a black marker, if you use a black magic marker and you leave some on there, it keeps coming through your paint. So that's why I don't use a black magic marker. I only do that sometimes to show you what I'm doing, but I wouldn't risk it on a high quality model of my own. Unless of course it was going to be painted black. So again, we can put the pencil over there, rub the pencil over, and then when we sand it very lightly, we can see that we have no high or low areas. If there was still a sprue nib there, it would show up. Okay, so that's all that done. Right. So that's those three parts there that you can, we'll put them over there so you can see them better. Okay, so that's those three parts there, they're ready to be fitted. And then looking over here, we've got E1, which is this sprue here. Yes, that's E. So we've got E1. Be careful to use the right one, because on this one we've got a different one with an armour plate. So this being a Mark 1 doesn't have the armour plate. So we're going to cut this off here, here, and here, like that. Right. That's that done, and then we'll come along and just remove some more, just like so. And then I don't need the knife because I've got such a small amount left on there, I'm not going to bother. And then I'm going to come along here and just sand away the sprue nib. Now, I'm making a lot of fuss of this about sprue nibs because if you have got them still there, they can cause serious issues in the build, and you really need to make sure you're getting rid of them. Now here to show you, I'm going to use a pencil. Just rub the pencil over there, one stroke with the sander, and you can see that we've got, you can see there's pencil still above the sprue nib, so we're obviously not sanded flat there yet. I'm working around so I can get it around the, because it's a round tube, and then we're going to use our knife and just scrape away the mould seam on there, just like so. And then we've got the bottom is all good, the sides are all good, we've got rid of the seams. Do them in there as well, you're never going to see them because the seat's going to cover them up, but you can do them if you want to. And then a final little tip, if you really want to go the extra mile and you've got like a big tubular framework on a World War I aircraft that's all visible, what you can do is get your Tamiya extra thin, make sure there's hardly any left on the brush, and then just go around the edge where you've done your scraping. There's no sort of art to it, you're just rubbing it on, and what it will do, it will just take away any sanding marks, any little bits of edges that are on there or anything, and it gives you a nice round smooth surface. So that's part E1. Now we've got B6, which is the seat. So is this B? Nope, this is B here, is it? Yes. B6 is the seat. Here's the seat. And we've got some flash to do on here. That's good. Right. So I can show you flash removal. So here you can see on the edge of this seat we've got all sorts going on here. We've got a mould seam on the bottom. We've got flash around the top, you can see there. And yeah, it's all looking good. So I'm going to remove that sprue down the bottom. And we'll start off. We'll sand away that sprue on the bottom. Not that it really matters because it'll never be seen and it's in mid-air, it's not going to affect anything. On the sides here we've got mould lines and everything, so we're just going to sand those smooth. Okay, I'll just show you on the other side to use the pencil. So if I colour all this in with the pencil, you'll see it all. The difficult thing with the pencil is, on camera, if I hold it in the light so that you can see the pencil, I can't see it. It's almost like an invisible paint, it's weird. So I'm just going to sand away here and you can see that we've got pencil left in the middle. So we'll just keep sanding until that disappears. So we get a nice flat side to the seat. Okay, now over that headrest there you can see we've got some flash. It's a very sharp edge. So I'm literally just stroking the sanding stick across there very gently, just with the edge. There we go. I'm just going to scrape away the front edge and scrape down here. Right, and then I'm going to use my sponge again. My 1000 grit sponge. This is an Infini sanding stick. As I say, if you want to get yourself a nice set of sanding sticks, you can get the full bundle from Premium Hobbies, but it is about 60 or 70 pounds. But you can get 10% off with the code NMB10. But believe me, in my opinion, these Infini sanding sticks are the absolute nuts. And the trouble is they don't do skinny sticks. And I think the only place you can get skinny sticks now is UMP. You can get the Mk.1 ones, but the trouble is with those, the grits are all over the place. They don't have any sort of medium smooth grits. They go sort of 180, 240, 320 and then straight to 1200. It's just it's crazy. So there we are. Right, so that's the seat cleaned up. And now we've got the instrument panel, which is A2. I know sprue A is the one with the... Right, here's a good one for you, for beginners. Look at the parts before you start cutting them off. You can see here, this is quite a weak little assembly. And when you cut the parts off, obviously something has to move sideways to allow you to cut it off. So what I'm going to do here is look at this, and I'm thinking, well, if I cut there, it's likely to... If I cut it, let me get a pointer. If I cut this one off first... If I cut this one first, that may well snap the part there. If I cut this one first, it may well snap it here or push it over. If I cut that one first, it may well snap it there or snap it here. So what I'm going to do is take all the stress out of it. I'm going to cut the sprue here. Okay? And then when I cut this here, it allows that sprue to move away. Now when I cut this one here, and I cut this one here, nothing gets broken. So it's always good to look and think about what it is you're doing. Just think of it as, you know, if I cut here, you can see what happens as I cut it. It's pushing that away. Okay, it's pushing it away. So when you cut two parts apart, you will be pushing away. So that's always a good thing to remember. You can get single-sided cutters. I personally not a fan, but you can get them where they're just flat on one side and they've got a cutter on the other side. My favourite cutters of all are these. These are the Tamiya ones. And you see they have a very fine point on them. So when you cut the parts off, they do very, very little pushing. Okay, let me just show you on here. I'm not going to be using these, so you can see when I cut these off here, it hardly pushes it at all. Okay, it's really, really good. You can see I can take that off of there, and you can see here, I cut that, it hardly moves it at all. So for me, these are my go-to, my favourite cutters, and they are. If you want to get a pair of these, they are Tamiya. I've got a new set here. They are Tamiya 74123. Yeah, 74123 is the number. The other ones are. Here you go. So you've got 74123, which are the sharp pointed ones, and then you've got here the 74135. So funny enough, these are called sharp pointed side cutters, and these are called sharp pointed side cutters. And you can see the difference. I put them next to each other. You can see that this one has a longer jaw, but it's also very much, it's got more of an acute angle on here than that one. So when it cuts much neater. Don't ever use these for going around and cutting big bits of sprue, because you may well break them. I've got a pair here that actually broke, so be very careful what you're doing. But there you go. So that's the ones to look for. 74123, 74135. They're my favourites. You can get God hands and stuff, but if you ask me, they're very expensive. You know, and people always say about how amazing they are, but you can also get the trumpeter single-sided ones, which are cheaper. But I've got a pair here that I've only ever used on one model, because they were bought for me to use on a model that I haven't bloody finished. So now we can just come along and sand away those sprue. There's very big sprue gates on this kit, I must be honest. There we go, and then we've got that one down there on the side. You can see I'm just supporting. There we go. And then we can scrape away here. Scrape away those seams. It's little bits like this, guys, that just take your model that a little bit further. I can see I've still got some sprue nib on there. I should be able to show you with the pencil. I put some pencil over that area there. When I sand, yeah, you can see there's still pencil remaining. There we go. There we are. We got a ejector pin on the back. It doesn't really matter, but just sand it off. Just good practice, that's all. And then again, because this is all tubing and everything, I'm going to get with my Tamiya extra thin, remove most of the glue from the brush, come down the side, and there you go. Right, so that's those parts all off ready, and we've also got to get our fuselage halves off. Now I'm tempted to leave these on the sprue because it makes it very handy when we come to paint the inside. It's handy to have that to hold rather than holding individual parts, and it makes it a lot easier to film as well, because remember I'm going to be using the outdoor paints on here. So I'm going to leave those on the sprue, but what I am going to do before we do any painting, I'm going to get some IPA, grab a cotton bud, wet the cotton bud with the IPA. Isopropyl alcohol is perfectly safe on your plastic, it won't do any damage. And I'm going to rub over this area where we're going to paint it, just to make sure it's degreased. And there we are. Job done. You can see that will dry out and it will remain degreased. In fact, I'm going to do it back here as well, because I'm going to practice my first ever practice with the Outlaw Paints will be on here. And that'll be in a separate video, guys. It won't be in this one. So there we are, so that's ready. You can see the dirt on there. And that is why Airfix tell you to wash your parts. You can see there was actually dirt on there. So there we go. Right. So let's see if our wing is dry and we can get those seams sanded. Okay, so wing is dry. As you can see, we've got some super glue on the surface here. Okay, what you can do while it's still wet, you can wipe it away with a cotton bud. I tend to leave it on there and just take it off with a sander afterwards. Now I'm going to use the smooth side. You can feel which is the rough and the smooth side with your finger. I'm just going to go along here and just sand this. And you will see, straight away you can see here where the super glue is remaining and the plastic below is coming away. What I'm doing, I'm just going around. I'll show you what I'm doing in this angle so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just not trying to put a flat blunt edge on there, I'm just going to put like a radius on there. So sand away from the top, sand away from the bottom, and what we should end up with is a black line in the middle where the seam is. Okay, now the rib detail, don't worry about that because there wouldn't be rib detail right to the trailing edge anyway, because the trailing edge would be a strip. So having a straight strip along the back edge is not a problem. As I say, if I was building this as an advanced build, I would have thinned this right out. So it was extremely thin. Then we can come along from the top there, come along from the bottom. You can see we're putting this kind of radiused end on there. There we go. Okay, I'm going to have some more filling to do in there, I think. You can see we've got this thin black line all the way around there, and that's where we filled it. And then here, where we've got some super glue on the surface, I'm just using the corner of the sanding stick just to remove that little bit of black. There is where it's gone at the panel line, that doesn't matter. So you can see I'm using the corner of the stick again. So we'll go around this leading edge. Now this wing tip, if you remember, we have the bottom is actually sticking out above the upper. So now you can see the advantages when having these sticks which are hard. We've got our landing light here, so we're going to retain that edge. Okay, so we sand up to that edge, same there. You just left it slightly recessed, it gives you something to paint, that's all. In reality it would be flush with the rest of the fuselage, rest of the wing. There we go. And then here, can we cross the loop? Notice I'm only sanding in one direction, I'm not getting in there and because I want to see what I'm doing. And as you can see, you're rolling the wing around as I go to get an even sanding. If we start going like this, we'll end up with flat spots that look like a 50p piece. You can see we've got some sprue nib remaining there, look, so we can just sand that away. There we go. We're not worried about seeing a bit of glue in there because that means we filled the gap. But we don't really want to see anything on the top surface like we got in that landing light or on that wing tip. Quick look at the bottom. Once we primed it, we'll see how it looks. Now, the other thing about good thing about having a hard stick is when you go across here where this landing light's going to be, you don't want to be making a divot in there, you want it to be flat across the surface. So That's the other beauty in having a hard stick, that you retain that hard surface, that flat surface. Now here we've got this rib going around here, so we're going to sand up to that. As you can see, just gently stroking the sanding stick. There we go, you can see it just gone into there, into that corner. There we are. Then we go over the top of that rib, and then we can get our smaller pieces that we made earlier, and just sand away. I'm going to come into that edge. To retain that raised area on that rib. You can see we've got some glue there, and that's because here we had a slight step. That's okay, seeing a bit of glue is not a problem, it's the whole idea, it's filler. But we can actually feel a step there, so I'm going to continue to sand that until that step disappears. Better. Right, so we can come around there now, into that radius, and I'm not too worried about sanding this perfectly here, because when we come to fit the fuselage to the wings, we're going to have to be looking at this area again. Again, you can see we've got a step there that I've got to get rid of. And we can see we need some more in there, which is only to be expected. So get tight into that corner there. And we're going to get tight into that corner there. There we go. So that's that done. And then I'm going to take my sponge . And all that will do is take out any little flat spots or any sanding marks from the coarser stick. It will remove it. On that wingtip there we go round it, will just put a lovely radius wherever we might have left a little flat spot. So you can see there, all nicely done. And there we are, beautifully done. And then this side, you see we've still got to sand yet. So we're going to put some more in there. You can see I've got a white line there, that's dust in a gap. So we're going to put some more super glue in there. So I'm going to do that now. If I've got any super glue left on here, which I don't, I'm going to have to get some more out. Yeah, I'm going to have to get some more out. So I'll get that done, and then I'll come back when we're all done and this is all sanded. Right, so I've sanded this all out. I've gone round with a sponge. Something else we're going to do, I think we're going to drill these guns out because they don't look very nice to them. They need to be opened out. So I think we'll do that as well. We're going to have to remember to paint in there silver before we put those clear parts on as well. And we may have to sand those down to get them nice and smooth. That'll involve using more sanders than I actually stated at the beginning, but you know, there's sort of bits and pieces we can do on here that are kind of advanced. I mean, you could just leave it at that, put it all together, and you may have a bit of a seam line left, but we're also going to look at scribing the panel lines in, and we're going to look at you know, just basic modelling stuff. You may choose not to do some of it, that's absolutely fine. Your model will still look great, but the thing is, you don't want great big seams everywhere, particularly along there on the top of your fuselage. So what I'm going to do here, I've got some Mr. Surfacer 1200, sorry. This is the thinnest one. Now, Mr. Surfacer, you get it from Premium Hobbies. It's bloody awesome stuff. It's really, really good. And we'll be using it in there, and then I'll be removing it with a cotton bud. You'll look forward to that. But here we're going to sand it. And what I'm going to do is paint this on, because although we've got the the seams all sanded, I can still feel something there. So it could be because the plastic is so soft that what we're experiencing is the plastic is sanding away around the outside of the super glue. So what I'm going to do, I've got this Mr. Surfacer 1200 and a small brush. I'm just going to brush it on over the seams where the super glue is. And then what we'll do is we'll come in with a sanding sponge and we'll just remove the excess, and any small ridges and stuff we've got will be filled with this. Now I was going to use black so that you could see it, because obviously this grey plastic is very difficult to see stuff on. The trouble is, if I use black, I won't know if I've got super glue or black Mr. Surfacer showing through. Now if I sand all this away and I end up with black all the way around, then I know that I've gone through and I've got nice seams. If I end up with grey, a grey line in between two patches of black, we know that we've probably still got a problem there. Now, I know what you're saying, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking he's going to town on this, he's going way over the top. I am for an outright beginner, but why not just take the extra time to do this, to get your model not just good, but to get it perfect. Yeah? I've heard people say recently, the trouble is they watch your videos, they see the results you get, and if they can't achieve the same thing, they give up. Well, what I would say to those people is, if you can't achieve the same as I'm doing, just watch what I'm doing, because there are modelers out there that put videos together and they'll do like a 2-month build in a 20-minute video. And that is not designed for you to learn anything from, it's designed for you to be entertained for 20 minutes. My videos are totally designed, especially these beginner ones, 100% designed for you to learn from. Okay, so take that as you like, but basically what I'm trying to do here is show you. See, I can see I've got a seam still there. Just put some more in, and then when we sand this out with a sponge, then we'll see what it looks like. We try not to put our fingers in it when it's still wet as well. It's a good thing. So there we are. So we're going all the way around the wingtips, and it's all going to look great once it's all. The only reason there's a clothes peg on there is for me to hold it. So we'll wait for that to dry, give that a couple of hours, and then sand it out. In the meantime, we could be getting on with something else. You could start another model, anything. So what I'm going to do now is let that dry, and then we'll move on and look at doing something else. Alright, here we are. It's a day later now, so it's like 24 hours later, and I've gone round, used my sponge. I've just used the 1000 grit Infini sponge. I've just gone round and sanded all around the leading and trailing edges. I just remove the excess of Mr. Surfacer, and you can see, particularly in this area here, you can see there's quite a lot of Mr. Surfacer remaining, so there was obviously quite a sink mark there or something that I was seeing. But as you can see, all nice and smooth, all seamless, and when we get a coat of primer on there, we'll see exactly what it looks like. We won't prime it until the very end, until the whole basic model is built, and then the grey primer will show up, and I'll show you all that. Although this is not about painting, it's going to be about building, but I'll show you the results of the painting. So the next thing to do now, to take your models that one step further, you can see here we have a panel line there, okay, and it stops there because we've been sanding and filling and everything, and it carries on underneath here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that line continues. Now I've already done this side, so hopefully you can see that. If I just run this pointer tool down there, you can see that panel line there is going all the way around, and on this side it's not. So what I do, this is how I do it. There's lots of different ways to do this. This is how I'm going to do it in this occasion. There's lots of different ways to do it with different tools and stuff. But what I'm going to do is get my knife, my straight blade, okay, and just roll the knife from top to bottom and from bottom to top. and just form a line. Now that, essentially that is enough. You can see you've now got that line going through where the paint and everything is. But what I'm going to do now is use a scriber. Now you can use a single pointed tool like this. You could just use a needle and just follow that line that you've just put in with the knife. Okay, and that will just widen it up a bit. That'll just fatten it up and get it the same sort of size as the scribe line. So that line now is going all the way around. So you could leave it at that. You can use scribers if you want to go to the expense of scribers. This is a very good one, Mr. Scriber from MRP, and this is called the wedge. As you can see, it's like a wedge on the end. It's quite thin, so it's good. And you can just follow that line that you've already put in there. Go from top to bottom, and then go from bottom to top. And everything should sort of line up. I've got a bit of a step there, which is a bit of a shame. But I'm going to leave that because I'm not going to worry about it too much. But there we go. What you can do now is, if you have got the step, you can see what's happened here. The panel line on the upper panel is not perfectly aligned with the panel line on the bottom. So we've got a bit of a step there. So what we can do is just make it sort of blend in, just by continuing to scribe. Or you could come along with some super glue, fill it in, and just redo it again. But I'm going to leave that like it is because it's absolutely fine. You can see there's a slight step here. Okay, but that's fine. Right. Is that the white side or the black side? That is the black side, so that's good, so it's hardly going to show anyway. So there we are. Right. So that's that done. Now, looking in the instructions, there's something here that's a bit silly. This piece here is going in. I don't know why they didn't get us to put that in back here when we built the undercarriage, when we fitted the wing, the upper wing. I guess it's because they don't have to put another step in the instructions, I suppose. But we're going to get that fitted at some point. We'll follow the instructions for this build, because otherwise you get confused if you are a beginner. So there we are. So that's that ready. Now I've got all these parts off the sprues, you know, you've seen me get all them off and clean them up. We're now going to go along and get this all painted. So this will be painted silver and green, silver, 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 and then we'll get it all glued on. And we're also going to paint the insides of the fuselage so we can get the fuselage halves together. We're also going to be covering in part 3, we're going to be putting that decal on, so we'll cover how to do decals. I've also got to drill that hole in the side of the fuselage, and as I said, I'm going to open up these ports in the wing. Now Airfix give you a decal to go on here, which is the red the cover they put over them, and what they did, they actually put a cover over the guns to stop them icing up, to stop the cold air going in there. And then the first time they used the guns, the bullet would actually make a hole and it would blast away. So what we're going to do, draw those out, we'll put the decal on. When the decal's dry, we'll punch holes in the decal. It'll look like it's been out flying and using its guns. So there we are. Right. So we're going to draw those out. We're going to draw the hole in the side of the fuselage, and we're going to carry on and get the fuselage halves together and then put the fuselage on the wing. And that will be in part 3. So I'll see you for that. Thank you for watching. And any questions, any comments, please feel free to put them down below and I will answer them as well as I can. And if there's a major question like a biggie, then what I will do, I will be picking up the question and I will answer it in the video following. But remember, I'm ahead of you, so I'm doing this now. I've just finished part 2. Part 1 hasn't even gone out yet. So when you see part 1, you may be asking questions and I might have already done part 4, for example. So keep looking and your questions will be answered if they are in depth and they need to be sort of shown on video. Okay, so I'll see you for part 3. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.